Hi, this is Kristen Muzzy with Riveting Connections Connect and Collaborate radio show, and we are so happy to have you this afternoon. We've got a great show to talk about what we're passionate about, which is connecting and collaborating and growing business through leadership, results, or reach and results. Mm-hmm. So today we're super honored to have Gayle Dendinger, who happens to be the founder of Colorado Business Roundtable, Icosa Media, CAP family businesses, which are Logistics, CAP Worldwide, Alliance, and a few others. Welcome, Gayle.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then we have Angelo Tanner, who is also a serial entrepreneur, very successful. Oh, Angelo.
Angelo couldn't be here today.
Greg Tanner. Sorry, Greg. We have Greg Tanner with Aspen Capital Fund, serial entrepreneur. That's one of your businesses, and we're going to talk a little bit about Hispanic Startup Weekend, which you're sponsoring with Buku, right?
Right, correct.
Yeah. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Angelo, Greg, you can be whoever you want to be. So I want to start, let's talk a little bit about Hispanic Startup Weekend. Tell us a little bit, first of all, when it is, where it's going to be, and what's it about?
It's going to be this month, October 25th through the 27th.
Okay.
It's 3 days, very short. And it's
intense, right?
I don't think it'll be intense. I think it's going to be a great event. I think it's going to be in the Morrison corridor in Westwood of Denver.
Okay.
So it's a Hispanic culturally anchored neighborhood. So we're really excited about that.
Where is the Morrison corridor?
It's between Sheridan and Alameda on the west side of Denver, just before Lakewood.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
And Buku West, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit?
Sure. Buku West is led by a gentleman named Jose Esparza, and it's a development, basically a development agency or advocate. They've got a GoFund, I believe it's $12 million to redevelop Morrison Road, and they're doing positive things, trying to make sure that the culture of the neighborhood sticks while it grows economically, and they're bringing jobs there. They're trying to keep businesses there and make sure that it really the essence of the neighborhood, what it is now, stays as it progresses economically.
Yeah, it's really cool. Their website is bucu.org or .com.
It's bucuwest.com.
Okay,
yeah.
.com. It's fascinating. I went and visited it a little bit last night, and there's a map and a visual of the progression that they're making this neighborhood, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah, it's really I grew up really nearby there too, so I've seen it progress to where it is now. It hasn't progressed dramatically like all the rest of Denver, but it's definitely changing quite a bit.
Yeah, it's cool.
So does Morrison Road run all the way into town?
Yeah, Morrison Road. Well, it's Morrison Road. It's like a diagonal piece of it. It's just, I don't know how it ended up that way. It's kind of a really interesting way because technically it's Mississippian and it kind of turns and angles.
But if you looked at a street sign, it would say Morrison Road, Morrison Corridor, or something.
No, it says Morrison Road, actually.
Kidding me?
Yeah, it's like
pretty weird.
It's like a section of Morrison Road in Denver.
Yeah, because when I think of Morrison Corridor, I think of, up by Red Rocks, right?
Right, yeah.
Is that what you thought too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do we have like Fifth Avenue here someplace too and don't know it?
Probably. I actually used to live on Fifth, so yes.
Funny.
So, you have a financial background, which I'm curious to get into after a while, but you talked about the GoFund site and people raising $12 million. Mm-hmm. What kind of people would invest money and what are they getting out of it?
Actually, it's the city. It's called a GoFund, but it's a city grant, and they've allocated $12 million.
So it's not a website where somebody's going to get a T-shirt.
No. It's actually the citizens of Denver. It's a bond, and they passed the bond, and they got that bond.
Cool.
Awesome. And that's all for the investment and the development of that neighborhood.
Correct. So they're going to expand the sidewalks so it's more walkable.
Okay.
Improve all of that. Make sure it's all handicap accessible throughout the
Yeah.
corridor, and just general improvements and really kind of starting to anchor the infrastructure so that businesses will come,
Gotcha.
and then obviously improving the residential area as well. But
Yeah.
they're trying to not do gentrification. Is that what they're trying to
Right.
keep the people and educate people? Like, just don't sell your house for X amount and then move out, right?
Sure. Yeah, we want to keep it. We want to retain you here and build the neighborhood.
Correct,
With
yeah.
business and
Right, right.
sustainability.
And there are a lot of businesses there. It's really cool. There's the Kitchen Network is at one end.
What's the Kitchen Network?
The Kitchen Network does source contract for bottling. So if you want to create a salsa, you can go there. It's an FDA approved kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Salsas, sauces, anything that you want to jar. And I think it houses about 140 different businesses.
Oh, wow.
So it's a commissary kitchen essentially, but it's got bottling and FDA approval. So you can get FDA approved and sell your salsa across the country.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's
That's
really
very
cool.
So it sounds like there's one rather large building that's got sub-offices in it. Or am I
No.
looking at this wrong?
No, the Kitchen Network is like a commissary. So you'll have like a big kitchen.
Okay.
And then they have like kind of lockers around it sort of thing. Yeah. It's really interesting. So basically think of a big kitchen and a bottling facility
Right.
where you can go and basically rent it
Right.
for whatever time you need to make your salsa or Italian sauces.
Okay.
There's a interesting company that does lard, natural lard, all natural lard.
Is that good for you?
It's actually supposed to be really good for
That's
you.
what I've heard.
Yeah.
It used to be, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
And now they're saying like butter's good and now lard's good.
It's fascinating to go there because there's so many great ideas. There's a company that we talked to called Let Thy Food, and it's all vegan
Oh,
cheeses, cheese flavors.
Oh, wow.
So, and I bought it, and I didn't really know what it was, but I tasted it, and I was like, "This is great! It's amazing
Huh.
cheese." And I look at the label; it's
Vegan.
there's no cheese in it at all.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did they take an old building then, and then somebody went in there and anchored it somehow?
Yeah, really, it's kind of it started with like basically like what looks like a house, and then they've added on, and so they support a lot of food trucks as well. So
Okay.
like hot dog stands and all
Yeah.
that. You can't go home and cook, right? Because it's not health ordinance approved or whatever. So the Kitchen Network is one of the few places that it's accessible, and you don't need to spend a fortune in a commercial kitchen, right? So it's
Gotcha.
a piecemeal thing. It's really cool.
That
So
is
the-
nice.
So the work you're doing right now, is it defined by geography? Is it no farther west than or no farther north than, or is it working with a certain set of people? What is the definition of who you're working with?
Well, we work with all types of entrepreneurs. I mean, we like to we have a specialty in the Hispanic business to business and Hispanic to consumer markets, primarily because we're Hispanic and we know the nuances of Hispanic-owned businesses and minority businesses because of all of the great benefits that are available to them and how to leverage like an 8A certification or a minority certification or a Native American certification, and then women-owned businesses have their own certifications as well, and they fall into that category. So there are a lot of resources that you can use, kind of like being in a HUD zone, right?
Right.
So
you're relatively smart, aren't you?
no, I'm clever.
Clever.
Crafty.
Can you tell us about your background, education, some of the places you've worked, how
Yeah.
you got to where you're at right now?
Oh, geez. Well, I started at Kentucky Fried Chicken, literally. When in high school, I worked there. I went to the University of New Mexico. I studied nuclear engineering there, and I actually really didn't want to. I didn't want to be an engineer. I interned, and I was like, this isn't for me. It just was.
I took one class in math, and I figured out it wasn't for me. So, sounds like you got farther down the road than I did.
I forced myself. It's kind of more force feeding.
But because I know some of your story, Greg, do you mind sharing, just how you launched? I mean, you didn't come from like a silver spoon in your mouth?
No, I didn't. I grew up right by Westwood neighborhood called Little Mexico. My parents were working class and pretty, I would consider poor. Now I look back, I mean, we didn't want for anything, but it wasn't like we had any luxuries. And, they're really watching the pennies. So that was great. And hung around a lot of really, rough kids. And I got lucky. A teacher said, you need to straighten up. And she sent me to a Red Cross leadership camp for a week. And I was literally the only person of color. And all these kids knew what they were doing. And this was in 7th grade. They knew, like, I was going to be a doctor, or I'm going to be an accountant, and my dad's this, and, all this stuff. And they knew, and they had these assumptions that they were going to go to college and be a professional something. Really interesting. And so I kind of said, I got to get it together. And so through that week, I really grew, and there was a positive environment as well. Like, people kind of just accepted me, and I kind of learned, like, people don't really judge you, and it was a great experience. I came back and I didn't turn my life around. I changed for sure, and I got on track to. I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to do something. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was like, I need to get to college.
Yeah.
And then that kind of
something about swimming, though. I remember something about swimming.
So I went to. I've been an athlete. I played Little League football and all that.
You're such a little guy.
Yeah.
For those listening, you used to play rugby?
I used to play rugby.
Yeah.
So in high school, I ended up going to Lincoln, and I was like, I'm going to participate in sports. So I went and tried out for the football team, and I was really, in high school, surprisingly, I was at the back of the curve, so I didn't grow up. I was bigger when I was younger, and then I kind of stopped for a while. And I didn't really make the team, so to speak, so that was kind of, I played through the season, but it wasn't anything exciting. And then I swam in the winter time, and then I ran track in the spring, but I really grew to like swimming, so I swam through the summer, and I literally, not kidding, swam like 9 hours a day. And
that story is amazing.
So I went from not being able to swim 25 meters to being basically the city champion in my sophomore year.
And everybody said, you can't do it.
Yeah, they couldn't believe me. Like when I came back to swim practice, they couldn't believe, I said I was going to win city and all this, and we hadn't talked. No one had seen me swim, and that season, the first practice, the coach is like, "What have you been doing?"
You've been an amphibian in the pool. Yeah,
I literally, I'm not kidding. I swam about 9 hours a day. Like that's all I did. I had a coach, and she's like, "What do you want to do?" And I told her I wanted to go to the Junior Olympics in the summer, and then I wanted to be the best swimmer when I get back. And I think she probably thought I was crazy, but then she started to see me swim so much, and that's how kind of. So swimming kind of took me to another area, and I knew it was a means to maybe get to college. So I got really excited about that, and then I ended up at UNM because of swimming, and then I swam in college, and then I ended up playing rugby because I met a guy named Sims, Dr. Sims, and he was a great guy. I think he was like 60, and he was still playing rugby.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Rugby.
Another, these are all connection kind of things, right? Like
Connect
things that just happen.
Yeah.
That just happen. Like, the teacher, Mrs. Gabrielson, saw something in me, and it was because of her, and then me connecting with other people, and then when I was younger, and seeing those things, and then swimming, and then then you get to college, and then there you go.
You anticipated my question. We had a segment here in the past we called Brave Leaders. So we've had Governor Hickenlooper in here and people like that. And so it was somebody that inspired them. And right now you've mentioned at least 3 people.
Yeah.
And I think they changed your life. They opened up some doors and gave you a little bit of confidence. Can you talk about each one of these people? We'll do a little Brave Leader segment. Okay. How somebody helped you and what it meant to you.
Well, I guess the first one, I think the first one was just a teacher name, and her name's Miss Gabrielson, and I mean, I feel bad because I don't know much about her other than she was a teacher. And somehow
great teacher that saw something
in me. And I mean, that's what I knew about her. But Phil Sims he was a great coach. He was a great guy. He was a psychologist, and an older guy, and he was just full of life. It was pretty amazing. White hair, and kind of really, in New Mexico, he dressed like the psychologist, like tweed jacket and scarf, and and he was just a character, and saw me walking, and he's like, "You should come play rugby." And I go, I don't know how to play rugby. It looks cool, but I don't know anything about it. He's like, "Well, just come out." And I did, and then he said, "We have a game this Saturday," and we had to drive to New Mexico Military Institute.
Wow.
So I spent 5 hours in his car Magia going there, and he just talked about all of his rugby experiences. Like I went to England, and he's like, I went to England and played these guys, and do you know these guys? And I go, I don't know any of these guys, but he had traveled, and he had been playing rugby since he'd probably been playing 40 years, and he was still playing.
Yeah.
He actually suited up and played because we needed somebody.
He shared his experience with you.
Yeah. Quite a character. Kind of really. Kind of gave me the options of like, hey, you could go see the world and play rugby, and there'll always be someone there. Like if you go somewhere, there'll be someone that you can connect with, right?
Yeah.
You go anywhere, and if someone's played rugby, you automatically have a connection. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Kind of like if you go to war. I think if you're in the military, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're a Marine, so was I. Like, you get that. Like, kind of, you get up early and make the bed too, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just surmising here a little bit. So there have been people that helped you along the way, and it sounds like they were very inspirational in the work that you're doing right now, that you've been successful, you've got something to give back to people, you understand processes. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're doing right now? Were these people actually many years ago influential in you reaching out right now?
Yeah, I think, Sims was really good because he really gave. He one of the things he said is like, if you want something in life, you got to give it. He's like, don't take, give.
Yes.
That was one of the things we talked about in the car, and he had a long solo conversation. I just listened about how you gotta give. Trying to get to know me, which was kind of interesting, right? Like truly get to know me.
Yeah.
And he was like, you've got to give. It's not a take world. Happy. He's like, you got to chase happiness, not money. Mm-hmm. Things that like when I was 20, I had no really clue.
So you could write a book if you could recollect what this guy told you in a 5 hour.
Written a book.
Well, you have written a book.
Not about this.
Tell us about your book then.
So I've written when I was in IT. I wrote a book called Top Techie. It was about getting to the top of the technical world, and what I saw like people just didn't do, which like take notes, have good manners.
That you could apply to really any role, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's just basic principles.
It's master of the obvious, quite honestly, on paper.
Master of the That's where Greg and I met years ago. Is you were IT director, and I was helping implement an ERP solution, and so we spent a lot of like stressful hours together.
Yeah.
Formed a relationship. But what always inspires me about you, Greg, is that when you get a goal and when you're presented with a challenge and you set your mind to a goal, you not only achieve it, you like overachieve, and then you build a business on it. And at that point in time, you were going for the Ironman.
Yeah, I was doing Ironman.
Yeah.
So.
And then you formed a company that did triathlon.
We did travel, tri-travel. Yeah, triathlon, adventure travel.
Yeah.
So,
what are some of the people like that you hang with?
I kind of have a small circle. I think. You make relationships, you maintain those relationships lifelong. But as I got older, I think now I have a closer handful of friends that I hang out with. One of them is Angelo. One of them is my wife Amy.
Yeah.
And I hang out a little bit with Kristen.
Yeah.
I have, some other friends that are quite amazing. My buddy Jack, I don't get to hang out with him very much because he moved to San Diego, but Jack is a great guy. He's got this knack for really paying attention to detail and growing businesses and making a lot of money doing it without really, I don't know, it doesn't look like he tries, but I do know he tries.
Yeah.
So there's a gentleman named John Icard. He used to be the president or CEO of First Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And he says there's two things he always kept in the back of his mind. One is that everybody that has a business at some point in time thought they were going to die as a business, and they probably know the date and even the hour. I'm going to ask that one first. What are some of the situations where you thought you weren't going to make it? And then how did you make it?
When I started my IT company, we had Angelo on board, and we had a handful of employees and an office space, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, we have payroll. like a real payroll,
right.
and
people
now,
are counting on me.
And now people are counting on you. But then, once the day came, we don't have money in the bank to make payroll, and it's tomorrow. Right, and people are waiting. We're going to be waiting for the check, and we have, $20. We don't have thousands of dollars, and I don't really. I mean, just by luck, we got a client, and I asked him for $16,000 a deposit, and he gave it to me
At the same time?
literally the next day on Friday. And then I could cut the check.
Like you never would have asked for it had you not had a crisis.
Never would have asked it. Never would have done. Never would have.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I got it, and I went to the bank, and I said, this has to go in today,
right now.
I literally, it was down to the minute. Quite honestly, it was crazy.
So are there other times where there's been a crisis or a gun at your head that's helped you push through?
After the recession, it was tough. It was just crazy.
Which one? The 85, 89,
the Great
the
Recession.
2001, the 2008.
2008, yeah. The 2008 was crazy. So about 2000, I want to say 2009 or 10 is when it kind of really all came crashing down on me, and I was just wow, I really don't have any money, real hard cash.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy. I had a car that was paid for, so I was maybe I'll mortgage my car. That was it was crazy. I really was how am I going to get hard cash? I've got all this money and this worth somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It's all on paper. Nobody cares about. You go to Safeway, they're oh, that's great that you have all that money in the bank, but we need cash today.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I'm taking over. You told me that I'd be fascinated by him, so.
It's always great to have you. So keep going.
What's the difference between irony and sarcasm? I always get that mixed up. So the other thing that John said, he says one of the biggest mistakes that you'll ever make, or one of the biggest issues you'll have, has to do with hiring. With personnel. He says either it's somebody that you kept around that you shouldn't have, or somebody you probably should have got on board that you missed or weren't in a good position to do it. Can you give us an example of that in a minute? 19, 18, 17?
You got 1 minute.
Yeah. So obviously, I fell in with my nephew Angelo. Got lucky with him. Who's amazing. Yeah, he's really amazing. Yeah. Just kind of absorbed it all. And then I think as I've gotten older, I've learned don't hire so quickly. That's really, we hired a lot of people too fast. We love you, come on board. Here's your desk.
Yeah, without doing some vetting. But do you hire for skills or character?
Well, we learned to hire for just character, people, and we could teach the skills. That's what we learned in the IT business.
Sure.
We didn't care if you knew anything about computers,
right.
But if we could talk to you and you had a learning aptitude, we could get you where we needed to go.
Yeah.
And so then you have a team of advisors that work with you, leaders.
Yeah. Yep. We have a lot of advisors actually.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
everybody wants to help, huh?
No, not everyone wants to help. We really have to recruit people. I mean, we've really worked hard to get the right people to help us.
Okay, so this is great. We're going to come back after a brief message with Greg Tanner and Gayle Dendinger. So we'll be back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Kristen Muzzy with Riveting Connections, Connect and Collaborate Radio. And we're so glad to have Gayle Dendinger, the founder of the Colorado Business Roundtable, Acosa Media, and CAP Logistics, CAP Worldwide, Alliance, and a few others.
Isn't there an airline in there or something?
Yeah, there's a little airline.
Yeah.
CAP Travel, right?
It's called Alliance Air Charter.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we have Greg Tanner with Aspen Capital Fund and several other businesses. And we were talking about Hispanic Startup Weekend. That's October 25th, 26th, 27th in the Morrison corridor. Mm-hmm. So welcome back, Greg.
Thank you.
And we never did get to the point where we know what Aspen Capital Fund is. So please.
Yes.
We're essentially we're basically an impact consultant and influencer company now. We did do investment into other companies, which is some part of the reason why I'm a serial entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
But we basically help companies grow up so that they're venture ready, so that they're when you talk logically to an investor, there are things that you want to say. We teach them the process of what that looks like, because when you go out and raise money, I think people think like, hey, I'm going to go get this money, and really what happens in that next sentence is, and then what, right? If I give you this money, and then what? And then generally they're not prepared for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd sort of be the same way if you were holding yourself out for a merger and acquisition, that there's certain things you come in there.
Right.
So we had somebody in the last year that wanted to buy one of our companies, and I was absolutely amazed how much work it is to do something like that, not just doing it out of curiosity. But if we wanted to sell one of our companies and you came in here, what would you do?
Well, there's a lot of things, like what really is the end goal for one, the buyer and the seller, right? So sometimes it's strategic, sometimes the buyer wants to retire, right? And what does that look like? So depends on the transaction. So there's always that, I hate to say that depends thing, because I hate that.
Right.
That depends.
I know, and I'm about 70 years old, so I really hate the term.
Yeah.
So good to have you on the show, Gayle.
Yeah.
Well, we might have to edit that out.
I think so you look at kind of what both parties are, and you're going to be working for one or the other parties. I've never come in the middle, like as a mediator per se. I usually
are there people that do mediate?
I think there are. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, it's really a tough position to be in, right?
Right?
Oh yeah,
kind of.
Sometimes I mean, a lot of people. I've been in a transaction one time, and we were buying the business, and they looked over to me and it said, how much money of this is yours? And I said, none of it. It was all, it was another private equity company, and at that point I thought I was going to get choked. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. It's so sometimes it's adversarial. I think owners are really, they love their businesses, right? As you know, having a business is really personal. I mean, I think people don't think it is, but it's people,
There's that emotional component.
Yeah. I mean,
this is the baby that you built, right?
Yeah.
And you want it to be taken care of. So there is a big emotional component.
And when you're in business and you've been in business for a while, there's failure right around the corner, right? I mean, so once you get to a point, you're like, hey, we're good.
Yeah.
But I mean,
don't you agree with that?
In decades, you could still feel like, hey,
every day, right?
Yeah, I can't say anything because I'm paralyzed with fear.
Oh no, because you built your business 36 years ago, right? Is when you launched it, and you launched it from having key connections, people that had spheres of influence, right?
Mostly I did it like Steve Jobs. Almost every person that started a business because they hated their boss.
Okay.
And
so tell us the story. It's a great story.
Well, to sum it up, my boss believed in personnel management along the lines of if you could fill your personnel folder with an amount that was equal to your body weight, he thought he might have you under control.
Oh,
and he didn't. And I don't think there's any love lost. There's actually people I've had in the past that were bosses I didn't like that I learned a lot from. One of those guys, a gentleman named Dave Beats, and I actually called him up some years ago and thanked him for being so disciplined and so hard. I think if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in the business that I am now, just like some of your mentors. I just didn't appreciate the mentoring at the time.
Actually, one of the best things that happened to me after college was, and besides rugby, was I got fired from a job, and it was awesome. It was like, it was really scary, but it was really like at the time like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Kind of thing. But then it was right before the tech boom, right? Like the first tech boom. And when I started to go out look for like another job, it was like, I mean, it was crazy. Like I had 35 people like, you want to come work for me? And the money was good and all that. And it was all because I got fired, and I was only hanging on to that for the wrong reason. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, absolutely.
The absolute wrong reason. And now I look back and I'm like, man, I should have just jumped ship way early. And I wanted to. It's fear, right? It's fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that desperation, wonderful inspiration, timelines.
Yeah.
So I'm not disciplined enough to do like a lot of people where, I've got a planner every day and I plan every minute and so on. But I do respond to dying, to being in really, really bad situations, trying to avoid bad situations. And so that's kind of, the artificial way that I approach things. We're in the logistics business. We handle emergencies. So every time the phone rings, it's a crisis.
Yeah.
We work with our little airlines. So not only are we helping a customer with a crisis, we have to respond. Airplanes are very difficult to deal with. So I think it's just a great way of getting things done is being scared to death about 3/4 of the time.
Yeah. I mean, you rise to the occasion. I mean,
and that's where I think having a network of people and reaching out and not being afraid to reach out and have conversations with people.
Because they all have the same story.
It's true. It is so true.
Especially the people that you hang around with, right? You're like, those people will know, like, if you call and you need something, you really do need something, right? Or someone calls me, I know, like, they do need something from me, or as long as it's not moving them from house to house, I'll do it.
Yeah.
There are movers for that. I don't move.
Moving's out, right?
Moving's out, right?
That's when you call Angelo, right?
I call a mover for them. Yeah.
So what do you think are the importance of humor and enthusiasm?
I think you've got to, humor's got to be, one of the most important things you do in life, because obviously smiles are contagious. It's part of being happy, right? I mean, and levity is good in almost any situation. I mean, even in a funeral, it's there's it makes people smile, and when people remember things and that
celebrate
sort of
the life that was lived.
Right. And so one of the things I did when we were in the last Great Recession was I started to do stand-up comedy.
Are you kidding me?
I did not know
well, this
that.
is why, because I wanted to. Every time I got up to stand up to speak, I would kind of freeze up. And
wow, I could never picture that. Could you picture that, Greg?
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised. Freezing.
Yeah.
No, but I think everybody freezes up.
True.
When they first start.
Stand-up comedy. That's awesome.
So I started doing that, and because I wanted to be comfortable speaking. Yeah. And I mean, it's brutal. I mean, if you don't have good jokes and people aren't laughing, it's absolutely the best way to learn how to really speak and practice, because how do you practice in front of a group of people, right? Unless you're in a classroom.
My sister, I got introduced to the improv theater, the Bovine Improv, and they have classes for improv and focused on business. But that's a great skill to learn for whatever role you do in life, right? Is how to speak on the fly, and that's key.
Yeah.
Key to any success, don't you think so?
Mm-hmm.
And telling a good joke is always good too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you make somebody laugh and then they're like, oh, that's, I think people have a perception, especially when they meet me. I could be pretty serious and intense, I think.
Yes, you
and then
can.
and then I'll tell a joke. Like yesterday, I was on a 2-hour conference call, and this guy's pitching me, and I could tell, like, I think he was like, he was very nervous, and then I cracked a joke, and he started laughing, and
it puts people at ease, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're just people, and we form relationships, and life is too serious not to add some humor into all our conversations. And you're a good one for that, Gayle.
Yeah.
just
out
of the blue.
Right now, I'm scared. My tongue is thick, and
Yeah, right.
I had
Nobody believes you that knows you.
I had to leave the room, in between segments, and this is hard.
And none of us believe that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you go look at politicians, there's hardly any of them that have a sense of humor. Trump does.
Yeah.
For whatever else, the guy knows how to read people, which you know how to read people, has a sense of humor, knows when you make a little bit of a mess that you can get out of it with maybe the right kind of wording.
Right. Yeah, I think, it's like you said, it's enthusiasm too, right? Like you got to be, if you're
you have to show passion. You can't be monotone.
Right.
Well, one thing I noticed about you, as soon as you put on your headset today and you started talking, you had a big smile on your face. You still have a big smile on your face. So you're generally a happy person.
I am.
But you have known, maybe from selling or whatever, to put a smile on your face.
Absolutely. Bright eyes, smile, right? And have energy. Mm-hmm. And because it is contagious, and it does fill people up, don't you think?
Right. And that's how you connect with people, really. Like, that's the connection, right?
Yeah.
The connection is a warm smile and looking them in the eye and, chin up and all that stuff.
Right.
And I think we're going to have a new era of kids that don't, their chin is down, it's on their phone,
on
right?
their phone, yeah.
They're not smiling. They smile at the phone, right? Or it's really, it's important to have human connection. I mean, this will be like the first generation, I think, you can have connection without having a connection.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that at some point in time, as part of your funeral ceremony, they put your iPhone in with, because that's going to be about half your life.
They won't. Oh yeah, probably would. Yeah. People probably will. I mean, there's some cool stuff, like you get to.
There's great things about technology and leveraging technology, because it really has brought so many of us together. Created far more connections, but there is nothing like in-person communication. There is.
Right.
And there's scientific research behind it. there's an energy that takes place.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a divergence of kind of what we see now. Like there's like now where there's just one bit. There's a few big social media things, and you're going to see a divergence in terms of who you connect with, in terms of certain kind of groups, right?
Yeah.
So where we're going to kind of scale back from the large connections back to smaller groups.
Interesting.
Somebody asked Albert Einstein, what kind of weapons are there going to be in World War III? And he says, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you what it's going to be in World War IV. Sticks and stones. And I think that, at some point in time, what is going to be the way of communication, it might be yellow tablet and a pen. Because I think a lot of times, people get involved when they're selling. They're so interested in keying the information inside their laptop. I know that going to a doctor now, I've got one of the best doctors ever, but when he's trying to get the computer to go spit out the report when it gets done, it's not the same experience. And I don't think he's happy with it, but the insurance companies, whatever, have it set up.
Sure.
So how much are we losing because you can't look somebody in the face because you can't listen, or you're trying to do something else while you're listening? It's epidemic.
It truly is.
It really. I think back in, this was when I had my IT company, so maybe early 2000s, I get thousands of Christmas cards, which you think is really awesome, right?
Yeah.
And you start opening them up, and they're either just signed, or they're not even signed. They're just printed out cards.
They're all vendors, right?
It would depend. No. So I would open them all, because sometimes I'm like, oh, this is my friend.
You
Right.
lose that personal touch, and you get numb.
So literally, I mean, if I open it up, I just throw it out, and I would write a Christmas card out, like a handwritten note,
Right.
maybe to 25 people, and actually bring something up like, "How's your daughter?" And people would be like, "Wow, I can't believe you remembered my daughter's name," or something like that. And those connections, like people that I connected with, went a long ways, right? And people were like, why don't you send a Christmas card to all your clients? And I was like, I don't think they'd care.
No, they don't, because it's so
Right, impersonal.
so superficial.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a card so I can get your business, maybe.
Okay. I mean, yeah, sure. Like, make sure it has a note in it, right? And I still, like, I'm an old school guy. I still call people. Like, I mean, we're in sales.
Right?
We're in sales, and I do call people. I think people are surprised. And I'll leave a voicemail and say, call me back, right? I read an article where, like, if you literally told everybody that emailed you, like, and you wanted to have a conversation with them, just let's set up a call and let's talk. Like, you would get a lot more production out
So
of it.
use the email in the first place. Hey, call me.
No, so if you send me an email trying to have a conversation with me, I would just say, if you want to talk, call me.
Oh,
And then,
Gotcha.
pick up the phone when they call. Or they wouldn't call.
Okay.
Because a lot of people won't call.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people won't. They're afraid.
Yeah.
They're afraid to get sold to.
I don't know what it is.
People like to buy. They don't like to.
Yeah,
they don't like to
right.
be sold to.
Correct, right, yeah.
and I think there's so many ways of having gatekeepers now.
Oh, it's
not
crazy.
just people gatekeepers,
Yeah.
but email and don't answer the phone and
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you go to almost any website, you can't find, like, how
phone number?
phone number or an email.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, so I think, that's kind of, important sometimes sometimes it's great to not have it, and sometimes it's, it's necessary, right?
So I'm going to ask that.
Well, I got a good question too, but you go first.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Right.
So, how do you respond, or who do you respond to? What methods do you respond to for somebody to reach out to you to pitch potential new service, product, or whatever? What makes you actually respond and say, yeah, I'll meet with you?
I think if there's an incentive, like maybe if they'd send $100 or something like that.
Seriously?
I know. Yeah, seriously.
And I think companies do that.
Gayle, you are so
But companies do actually send.
They do, but that is not what you respond to. Is it through? It's oftentimes it's just, again, it's through connections. It's somebody that you know, like, and trust that says, "Hey, you should meet so and so."
Well, yeah, I look at my emails or whatever, and I'm particularly attracted to financial planners and to insurance people. So, and I always try to have time.
Gayle.
What?
This is a public forum. You might want to get that edited. I mean, unless you really want to talk to 100
it goes
Seriously, for people that listen, that are
No, I
listeners,
think it goes back. We almost got to the point before we were talking about being counterintuitive. So instead of everything being tech and everything being a device,
yeah.
and having so many different options to be able to do things, and everybody in your company is on the leading edge of technology, so you end up having 19 or 900 different programs to get things done. Why can't it be just really, really simple?
Okay.
Let's go meet, let's go talk on the
Go have
telephone
some
a little
coffee
bit.
and get to know each other, and then.
But
tell
I
me
think
about what you
everybody's
got.
trying to beat the odds by having technology do all the work, and people are so sick of it. So I think that we really stand out when we do take time to actually care,
Yeah.
when we do take time to talk to somebody. it makes all the difference in the world. So I think those people right now that are willing to talk to somebody, have a lunch, go out, have a drink, or do something where it's really personal, have a tremendous advantage over those people that are trying to have some kind of technology do the work for them.
Right.
It's gone too far.
Right.
And, we're so scared that we're going to miss out on something. Or somebody might try to look cool and, hey, I have this or I do this, and, you're, old school or whatever because you don't do it. And we fall into that trap all the time.
Yeah.
How dumb are we? Seriously.
Yeah.
How dumb are we? You'll have some kind of a trend, and then first the trend doesn't work. It kind of goes back with, I don't know if it was Gandhi or somebody like that. First they laugh at you, and then, then they're mad, and then they push back, whatever, and then, at some point in time, then they accept it, and then they think it's their idea. And so that same thing happens, and as soon as we think that somebody has something that's cooler, or they might have something that we're missing out on, we'll go out and buy the stuff. How much software,
Oh my gosh.
how much stuff is out there that may or may not work, but it doesn't really do any good if you have the best software in the world, the best hardware in the world, but you don't know how to make it work.
Right.
And I think that, if you're really interested in software, in a book, in studying or whatever, if you learn how to do one thing really, really, really well, instead of 14 things where, I know 3% of Excel, I know 5% of Word, and I know how to,
Yeah.
But boy, if I was really, really, really good, it drives me nuts. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the tech expert. How do you separate that?
I really don't. I think tech is kind of just it's a tool, but I don't.
It's a tool.
I mean, really, the real nuts and bolts of being successful is connecting with people.
Yes.
I mean, that's really the nuts and bolts of it. Like, it's who you know, how to get. It's getting people to buy into your dream.
Yeah.
Right, and putting money into that
and
dream,
helping share their dreams,
and putting that
right?
and helping other people, right? And one of my closest friends from college was crazy influential guy and really smart, and I think because he read a couple of really good books. One of them was Norman Vincent Peale, and then Think and Grow Rich, and he told me one thing one day, and I don't know what I was doing, but he said nobody cares. No one cares. No one cares about it.
That's true.
And it's so true. And when you really believe like nobody cares, like it's really liberating, right? Like you don't have to worry about failing. If no one cares, who cares if I crash and burn? And if you're really successful and you make a misnomer, then you're okay, right? Nobody cares, and then be good at a very few things. That's with tech. Like, be very good at just 3 things. Don't try to
eat the elephant and
just
be the end all. First of all, you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's not going to benefit anybody, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've been answering some of my emails like this. I'll go back and give somebody a pitch, and it's all sales or whatever. And then when I get done, then my last line is, and so forth and so on, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah.
Just to see if someone actually reads it.
Literally, I've seen the emails.
and it just makes me feel more honest.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I always ask people if I'm pitching, I say, yes or no. Like, what do you think? Like, just, if you think so, accept the idea, and yes, and if not, then we'll part ways, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't waste my time.
Wow.
So
I'm going to start doing this.
Well, I think that I'm going to, it's
Trademark
going to be
it?
trademark, but I'll give it to you just because I like it.
Okay.
No, I had a teacher in college, and when he got done with something, it was always and so forth and so on.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the yada yada yada.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure we've all seen blah blah blah. So it's just, just being a little bit creative.
So I have a question. If you were to give a couple nuggets of what makes a successful entrepreneur, what would it be? Two things.
Okay, this is going to take more than 10 seconds.
3 seconds.
3 seconds. Okay, now that we're past our time, now this is fun again. I think be lucky
Okay.
and be born to rich parents.
I mean, what is a successful entrepreneur? I mean, it's funny because you fail, right?
Yeah.
Your failure is part of being an entrepreneur. Period. I mean,
Right.
you know, there's not 1 out of 10 are successful, and
Yeah, I think it's 1 out of 20.
it might be 1 out of 100, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
but you know, when you start a business, it's like saying, "Hey, go qualify for Wimbledon this year."
Yeah.
That's literally what the analogy is, right?
Yeah. Right. So. So I'm getting to know. We have had a great conversation with 2 serial entrepreneurs. We thank you so much for joining us, Gayle Dendinger of Cap Logistics, Colorado Business Roundtable, and Icosa Media, and a number of other businesses, and Greg Tanner of Aspen Capital Fund. And please visit the Hispanic Startup Weekend in the Morrison corridor, October 25th, 26th, and 27th. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.